welcome to the software skills course for EstimatorXpress. Thank you all very much for coming here today. This will be the first session in the 2023 version of the software, though the main changes that have been made will not be apparent until the third session, where we'll be going into doing some estimating. Now, for these sessions, it is a case of follow along, copy as I do. I'll give periods between each section so you can catch up. There is a questions section that you can pop a question into directly to me. If it can be answered or is appropriate to answer at that time, I will answer it there and then. Otherwise, we can save it for a Q&A at the end. Bring up the slides there for you. So, swap that round to the next one. As the order of sessions will not be as dictated on that previous slide, we're going to be doing this from the price book to start with, so building up a foundation of knowledge. Each session will focus on a few different aspects of the software. As mentioned, you'll show you how to do a task, and you can follow along and complete the task at your end. Questions as we go along. There will be an opportunity for a short quiz at the end as well. Now, the training project we're going to be doing over this course is just going to be a simple lean-to single-story extension. Main idea is that we encounter the various different tools and templates that we'll be using along the way. That can be applied to any project. We'll be using an extension template, which will allow us to attach an extension to an existing building, allowing it to form the opening and plaster where appropriate within as well. Now, as we go through this short course, we will start off with the price book. This contains all the rates for labour, materials, plant, subcontract and sundry that we'll be using throughout our project. We'll also be learning how to edit these resources price-wise, and also create our own resources to place within the price book. Either if there's a resource that is not within the price book that we need, a bespoke resource, or if you need something that is of a particular brand name added in. In the next session, we'll be looking at the specification. Generally, it specifies the resources from the price book to use for different tasks. So cavity wall installation pack or Celotex type installation board for the cavity wall installation. Also sets out the rates of usage. We'll get more detail into that in the next session, so we can see how these specifications behave and how it impacts upon our work. It's also a great opportunity to tinker and learn how to swap things around and make the software do what you want it to do effectively. And in the third session, we'll be looking at how that comes together. So the specified elements of the estimate coming in from the specification, look into the price book for the resource price and description, and how that all goes together. So you select stud walls or single skin block walls for the internal wall specification. EstimatorXpress calculates the timber studding or block work as appropriate based on the materials specified in the spec. 1 second. I do apologize if anyone I go quiet. I just have to mute myself as just recovering from a bit of a chest infection, and have to have a bit of a cough every now and then, so I don't want to be coughing down the microphone. So I do mute myself on occasion. Now, for this session, we're going to start off in the library section on the left. Now, this is in the navigation tree. So whenever I say navigate on the left, I'm referring to this section of the software over here. Okay, so we have dashboard where we are currently. That's where we start off with. We have our link to the jobs. Let's do a different paint color there. So jobs, where we find all the different jobs that we've either been working on, or go in and open up ones and say that are outside of the software and we want to import them in. It gives us information about where they're saved as well. While we're here, I have a little brief tour of the software as well. You notice we have a ribbon system, very much like Office. Whenever I say something is in the ribbon, I am referring to this section up here, usually with buttons starting over on the left. Whenever I say tab, generally I refer to the tabs along the top up here. So dashboard, settings, help are there currently. Sometimes there are tabs within a subsection, like a window that pops up. So if we've got a window that is active in front of something, so something's opened up to give us options to change the price of something or look at different resources, then I'll be referring to tabs within that window. On the odd occasion, I might refer to the crumb bar, which is basically this kind of blue section here. For this section, though, today we'll be focusing on the library. Before I go into there, though, I'll just demonstrate what is within those tabs on the ribbon. The first one, dashboard there, that will change depending on what section of the software you're in, so it gives you a different selection of tools to use. The settings tab will always be there and persistent whichever section you are in. So currently we have EstimatorXpress options, software theme, default worksheet name, location, network settings. Those last two, don't worry about. The odd occasion, we might ask you to go into EstimatorXpress options, where you can come in here and make changes to certain things. But most of the time, it's going to be checking, say, the jobs tab to ensure that something like these don't export resource lines with the quantity of 0 are ticked. And if you want to use some of the legacy tools within the software, you can tick show legacy wall, door, and structural opening within here. I'll have that hidden currently, so we can be using the all new tools. Just to actually give a bit of assurance there, just in case, could you raise your hand if you're using the 2022 version of the software? Right, okay, there's a couple of you that are using the 2022. So what I'll do, just for this session, I will show the legacy items so they will be available, so I can point out you've got something to correlate with. The main one I'd like to point people towards in here, though, is registered user. As in fact, I actually do need to change this address myself, since we are no longer at Future Space at Filton Road, Stoke Gifford. We're no longer at the UE campus. We're now down at a place called Here off Bath Road in South Bristol. A lovely place. Used to be the ITV studios. This is a particular use because many of you may move house, your company might move address, you might update your address details, might change your telephone number or update your contact details, say email address within the software, especially if you've got a version of software that might be used by more than one person in the office. You can update the details to whoever's most appropriate. And the one that pains me to say most frequently, I have to come in here and capitalize people's addresses, because this picks up the address details when you register the software, and sometimes that may have been in a bit of a rush. Sometimes someone's address is BBBBBBBBB. Not the best. Definitely want to correct that before a customer sees it. So I'm going to close out of there. I'll update my address details at another time. Now, one thing I will do, I'm going to go into the software theme. It's always good to make stuff nice and comfortable with what you're viewing. Now, currently, light theme 1 is the default, and it's nice and bright. I am a fan of the blue theme, as it's just ever so slightly more chill. It's more of a very light grey, which is good for the eyeballs. I'll say that now. Some of you may prefer the grey theme. This is actually the one I use when I am working within the software and I'm not presenting, as it's much easier to stare at for any period of time, but not as easy to see over the internet. And if you do have any vision impairments, there is a high contrast theme as well available, just like with Windows. I'm going to stick to the blue theme because it's still nice and visible, and I get to save my eyeballs from retina burn. Now I'm going to move on to the library button on the left hand side in the navigation tray. If I click directly upon the library button, it gives me the list of items underneath of what is contained within the library, but also a preview or basically a bit of text describing each of the sections that we have within here. So price books, where your resources are kept, favorite merchants, overhead and profit inflation, specifications. And for when you are a bit more say happy with the software, using it, you can go in and start diving into maybe tweaking some estimating calculators or building your own reports out here for future use on every job. You'll see that I can also click on price books on the left hand side of the navigation tree to view a list of price books if I have more than one. Currently, I only have the master price book within the software. This is a nice, fresh, clean install. I have done this so it is more representative. If you've just received the software, you'll have no jobs in your kind of a dashboard. You'll see that as I've gone into the price books, I have my master price book and I have option to open, copy, or in this case, I can't delete because it is the main one within the software. I can either open it directly up here and have a menu pop up asking which section I want to go into, or on the left hand side, I can click on that there and see these sections open up for me to navigate into, or again, within what I shall refer to as the main screen, the main area, I have the options to open up the material, labor, plant, subcontract, and sundry. To begin this session, I'm going to start off by going into the labor section. The labor section has been specifically chosen for this because it's got the opportunity to use some tools and to edit the prices in here, while not being immediately overwhelming, such as the material section can be. Now, within the labor section of the price book, I'll bring your gaze to the ribbon again, where now the tab says price book as the primary tab. It gives us options for new resource, edit and delete, though I've got nothing selected, so I can't do anything with them, editing tools, save as changes, and download prices. Within the main section itself, you'll see that we have various column headers. So description, list price, discount, adjustment, purchase price, unit of supply, merchant, wastage options, which we'll get a little bit more into in a bit, date last modified, which is 38 minutes ago. That was when I hit the refresh button, basically sort my software back to default state, and the type. You'll notice that the type is currently in alphabetical order, as we are currently filtering this page by type. So bricklayer, carpenter, ceramic tiler, decorator, demolition contractor, so forth. This means under the description column, we've got our 2 bricklayers and a mate, 4 bricklayers, 2 mates, bricklayer, bricklayer, mate, bricklayers, mates. So we have all the bricklayer type gangs we have within the software listed together. Now, these are of different sizes and different combinations, and these will be linked to different tasks within the specification to do different things. So some small tasks may just have a bricklayer or bricklayer's mate associated, or some larger tasks may have bricklayer and mate, or two bricklayers and a mate, depending on the type of work. Just to point out, the 4 bricklayers and 2 mates is basically not used. It just sits there if you want to use it, if you're doing a much larger kind of house build, small estate kind of thing, and you just want to throw brickies at it. The list price column is the price that comes down from our servers. Now, once you change these prices in here, it tends to not be adjusted. We tend to not adjust these frequently, and if you change these in here, you can set them so they don't change at all. The discount column is effectively not used, though we can use it to abuse some prices in a pinch. The adjustment column is what is applied to then find your purchase price. Your purchase price is what the software will be always using to estimate with, no matter what we're doing. And then we have our unit supply hours. This is important because each gang here is currently being priced per hour. If you know what your gang's day rate is, divide by 8, because that is how we basically work our days, 8-hour days. So if you know the day rate, divide by 8, drop that price in. Now I say drop that price in. This is how we'll go about doing that. The simplest way is to go to the ribbon and click Editing Tools and click on Edit Prices. This will open up the purchase price column so we can define explicitly the price we are going to pay. Now I can say my bricklayer, he's not £28 an hour. I could be paying £30 an hour. For my bricklayer's mate, he's only getting 15. He's just fresh. He's not earning anything yet, which fortunately leaves my bricklayer and mate at £45 an hour still. That's handy. Now I'm having to work these individually, and it doesn't automatically change all the others upon changing one. So you might have different scenarios. You might have a higher rate for the bricklayer working on his own, let's say. On the 2 bricklayers and a mate there, I will actually adjust that to be 75. And on the odd occasion, once a decade, I might be using 4 bricklayers and 2 mates. I'll just set that to be 150 as appropriate. Now I've gone through, I've changed all my brickie rates to be more in line with what I'm expecting to pay. It's only a small change, but it can be enough to, on a much longer job or lots of jobs, factor in and build up to be more in line with what I expect to be paying my brickies. Now you can do this one section at a time, or you can go through and just work everything one after another if you know the rates for those particular gangs. And in the case of someone being multi-trade, where your brickie is also your carpenter, is also your ground worker, will also be as your roofer, then you can just set their hourly rate to be the same regardless. Or if they have different rates for different tasks, again, you can set that. If you have more than one gang, my general advice is to price for the more costly gang. That way then you're always covered. You could go to the extent of having a separate price book for your different gang rates in there, but that's adding unnecessary complication where we could just pick the slightly higher gang. And in the case of maybe if you have to pay even more on a particular job because the gang we normally use is not available, we have to pay a premium, we can just put that into the overheads on the labor if need be to cover any additional costs. With this as well, put in the purchase price per hour of what it costs you to employ that gang. You'll have additional things you can cover under the overheads for your labor, but you can factor in as much as you desire within here as well to ensure that you're always covered for PAYE and such. Or if they're just subbies on the books. With that, When I'm done with this, I can click Save Edited Changes. Now, this will occur every time I make a change, and I either manually click Save Edited Changes or I move to a different section. It'll prompt me, do I want to save them as adjustments? So as the list price adjusts, the purchase price will adjust, or do I want to say no and have them locked? In this case, I'm going to say no. You'll see there now that those prices have adjusted. The actual £45 is not adjusted. I can actually manually say that to not change in the future. What this means is now that those prices are no longer tracked by us. I've told it not to be tracked. The list price has actually changed to reflect that fact as well. But it means it's no longer our wheelhouse, you can monitor your prices. If you was to make changes to those and then say yes, they would remain as a black pen and they would fluctuate with prices. If I want to change that 45 so it's also no longer tracked, I can highlight that line and I can click Edit Resource and just untick Update with Download. You'll see that whenever you do this on an individual resource, so I've highlighted it, I've clicked Edit Resource, unticked Update with Download, and I can still manually adjust the price individually in here as well. We will be getting into the delivery weeks and payment weeks and such in subsequent materials. So there we go. Unit purchase price locked at 45. That means if I was to hit download prices and new prices are available, that would not change. Do you have any questions on the labor section? Good opportunity then to have a bit of a cough, clear the lungs. No questions there, so I'm going to move over now to the materials. Now I can move to the materials by using the navigation tree on the left hand side to just click directly on material. Hopefully that should be visible for everyone now. And again, as before, we got description, list price, discount, adjustment, purchase price, unit supply, merchant, which would be a bit more applicable now, especially if you have more than one merchant or if you add merchants to the software. We have a wastage column. In this case, that will be different for each material type, and a wastage not affecting order quantity, again, different each material type. Last modified date, that being again this morning when I did the price per download, the type, the VAT on that resource. And if I scroll across, you'll see there's a merchant's code and a notice or delivery weeks and payment terms in weeks as well. So when items got to be paid off by. Now this section is big. So I scroll, you'll see that the bar on the right hand side is barely moving. If I unlock my mouse wheel and just scroll, the screen can't even keep up fast enough to how much stuff there is that I'm scrolling through. You see merchant there's got some Crystal Direct items coming through. Radiators and so forth there. It is a large price book, bit of a beast. So we can take measures to tidy it up a little bit or filter it so it's easier to manage, look at certain sections at a time. Now, this is where we need to do some fine clicking skills. As I hover over each of these headers, you'll notice not only does the color change slightly, but I also have a small funnel / pin appear at the end of each one. Now, if I was to hover over the merchant and I got the little pin there, the little funnel for filter, if I left click upon that, I get some tick boxes. I got currently Crystal Direct, HPXL price tracker, provisional. I'm going to tick price tracker and provisional. Now I do want the provisional ones showing because there's some provisional items I will want to view momentarily. Actually, in fact, if I untick price tracker and look at provisional on their own, you'll see that that's just the items ticked, not required, to be defined, including subcontract. I want them visible because I will actually create some resources later on that I will actually apply to the provisional merchant. It makes them easier to find. Now, this has not made the price book massively shorter, but it's now, it's less than 10,000 resources in here now. But it's a good practice point to start with. What would be a more appropriate point to start with, I say, is to filter by type, because this will be the big one. You can say we've got aggregates, architectural stones, quite a few of those, in fact, bathroom items, blocks, boilers, and gas. Quite a lot. So I'm going to filter by type. I'm going to click on the pin there, and I'm going to start off with blocks. I now have a much smaller section of price book to manage. Give them a moment there to catch up with that. Okie dokie. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to click on the editing tools and edit prices once again. As I want to make some changes to some prices in here. Now, I don't need to go through and change all the prices. That'd be laborious. But there might be one or two items I want to change, a couple of key items, a couple of big items there, like what my dense concrete blocks are, or my insulated blocks are. And if I was to look at my blocks here, so insulation block standard 440, so 440 by 215 by 100 mil. Okay, £18.80 per meter square. And there's also an individual one underneath, which is £1.90. The software itself will actually be using the meter square. And if you're using an older version of the software and you don't have Smart Scheduler, then you will not actually have the items listed in your price book. They come from that. We price blocks by the meter square because historically our price book was inspired by, because when we first launched the software 23 years ago, by the Jewson method of pricing blocks, which is by the meter square. So that's where that logic comes from. Now for this, I could say that instead of paying £18.80 for blocks, I'm paying £16.90 per meter square. Now, that's not changed anything just yet. If I want to go to some other items, I can make changes. But for now, I'm going to change my meter square rate for insulation standard blocks 4400 by 215 by 100 mil to £16.90 per meter square. I'm going to click on Save Edited Changes. And I'm going to say, yes, I want this to be saved as an adjustment. You'll see there now that these prices are still in black. That's to indicate they're still tracked. My block has an adjustment of minus 10.11 to bring it down to its price that I've purchased them at. This, most importantly, is not a discount. it is a difference. Now, by that I mean we have a national average that we run with, calculated across a multitude of merchants in different locations to find out what the average is. But being an average, it's an average. It's only going to be spot on for a certain group of people in certain locations that are average. If you are more of an outlier, either by a remoteness of location or density of location where you are, then you might have different prices factored in. I say remoteness or density. If you're out in the sticks, your merchant's out in the sticks, there's a lot of travel time, material is hard to get there, there's likely going to be an increase in material cost to cover that. Say transport-wise, or where they have to range further and wider to deliver things because everything's not quite next door. On the inverse, your merchant might be within a dense built-up area. There's quite a few in South Bristol, and they're all at risk of being turned into houses. As such, their ground rents are extortionate, and their material prices have to be increased to reflect the fact they've got to pay out the nose to be where they are. So that get passed on to your material prices. Brick and block mortar stores are always going to be costing more than internet stores for that regard, and that would be one of the reasons you factor in with your local materials. Now, whatever premium they're paying is generally going to be stable for the most part. So whatever increase they've got over the national average on materials is generally going to be stable. They might be charging 10% more or 10% less because they might be very near the source of resources. Now, with that logic in mind, we can say that your average on those resources from that merchant is 10% and a bit away from our average, leading you to your purchase price. As our list price goes up and the national average increases, that will then filter down to your local merchant, who then will adjust their prices accordingly. If the national average goes up, there goes up, but with that, again, same difference applied, and that will then feed through. So your same difference is applied, your purchase price will increase or decrease if you cross your fingers and hope hard enough. On that note, so a significant enough price change, or sometimes circumstances for your merchant, might warrant a price change that is more or less than what your adjustment might dictate. But it still means that even for the day-to-day, you're having to not track everything constantly or check prices. It just keeps things in line unless something more drastic happens, in which case you can come back in here and make some adjustments. Now, that's just one resource that I've done this with. I can apply this to multiple other resources, and to do this, I'm going to click on the next in line. So I've got my my individual block there. I'm going to hold the Shift key on my keyboard, and I'm going to click all the way down to installation coursing block. Whole range of items, all currently highlighted. So click, hold Shift, click next further down the line, and it'll highlight first and last and everything in between. Nice standard Windows shortcut key, can do that anywhere for anything, number of documents, pictures, whatever. If you are using parallels, there is, I think it's one of the command keys to do that, it's an Alt, or little trick, if you set your parallels to run in gaming mode, for gaming layout and keys, it actually tells Shift to work as Shift would within Windows. So it replicates those keyboard commands. The last thing you want when you're playing online games is to be having to contort your fingers into weird twisty contraptions just to be able to do a simple thing like duck. So, coffee. Right. With all those items there highlighted, I can either right click on that list, or I can click Edit Resource within the ribbon. And what we have here now, I'll just move this off to the side so we can still see our adjustment. I have a list of items I can adjust across all of these globally. I have the adjustment of, say, 0 currently, because all the ones I selected are 0, as the apply ticked. What I'm going to do So I'm going to set that adjustment to be minus 10.11. And if I click OK, all the items currently highlighted will have that same adjustment applied. Just to highlight the fact that you can even just do this without even having to check what the purchase price is by unlocking the column first. If I was to click on the solid dense concrete block, hold shift and click on the last of the solid dense, I can go edit resource and have a flat adjustment of minus 10 directly in there. There we go. So just instead of having to fine tune it with the 0.11, I just say, oh, it's just 10% cheaper or 10% more costly. Who knows? What you do, it's your resources. But I'm not looking at your price book right now. I'm looking at mine. Now, that is just doing a group of items within the blocks there. And it might be that your 140 blocks or your 150 blocks might be a little bit different in price. They're not going to be hopefully too far off. Whatever adjustment or reason your blocks are 10% cheaper for one type is going to apply to the block of a similar type, just a bit thicker. But you can still go in there and fine tune those. Now I'm going to move on to another section. I'm going to go back to my type filter. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to untick blocks from my filter there. And I'm going to go to aggregates, which are at the very top of my screen originally. Now, again, this is just a very nice small section here. We have our ballast bulk bag, our ballast standard bag, blue circle cement, building sand bulk bag, building sand handy bag, decorative spar, lime stone chippings, kiln dried sand, level and compound mortar admix, hydraulic lime, ordinary cement, pea gravel, a whole range of different items. So we can't really just go selecting a whole bunch of items in here because they all got different types to them. They're all going to be slightly different. They're not going to have the same minus or plus adjustment. There are two ways we can go about this. One is if something's common enough, we can filter by name. The other one is to just select items out. Now, I'm going to go to my ballast bulk bag first. I'm going to make an adjustment to this one. I'm actually going to go editing tools, edit prices to open up the column. So editing tools, edit prices, and say that, oh, my purchase price for this is going to be 52. Still paying some prices from 5-6 months ago. So there we go. Tactical knock on the PC. Got a bearing going on in the fans. Yeah, right. Sorry, you hear my chair creaking about as I'm adjusting that. Now, £52 each. If I save those changes and say yes to that, like okay, I've got a minus 10%. Lovely. I'm making a load of money on these. Now, just to illustrate two things at once, okay, I'm going to have the ballast bulk bag highlighted while I do this. So I've got the original adjustment in there. I'm going to hold the control key because when I hold control, again, it's another window shortcut, I can click on other things. And instead of highlighting everything in between, it just allows me, while holding control, to pick out anything else one at a time without having to select everything in between. And again, now with all those items highlighted, including the original one, the adjustment of 10, I can click on edit resource. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight the one with the adjustment of -10 still in there is that because we've now got multiple different adjustment figures, 0 and -10, it's removed the apply tick on here. So, because if we were to adjust something else like delivery weeks or something, we would accidentally be overwriting all the different levels of adjustments we've done. But I'm going to put in here now -10. I'm going to say, I'm just going to average it to -10 on here. Going to click OK. And everything there now that's highlighted, including my original, is now at -10. So I can pick out individual items within the price book, which would be good if you've got certain things like the installation or something like that, where, again, different types and different varieties will have different adjustment values. Now, I did mention there was a second way of picking out items, especially if they had a similar item in their name, let's say, because I've just picked them out manually. But the common thing between all of those items, they were all bulk bags. If I use the filter box, it should be on for everyone's screen. It's just below the blue bar I've got there where it says library price books. The filter box allows, again, to search for, well, filter by explicit terms. Searching is a bit of a misnomer there because it doesn't search. It's not like Google where you type in something, you find the nearest. If I typed in sulk, it won't find, oh, do you mean bulk? Or anything like that. But if I typed in bulk as an explicit term, it will filter that and find everything with the name bulk within that. It's a database filter feature, so it's very explicit in what it's looking for. I can now see that I have missed one out. I've missed out the plastering sand bulk bag on that list. Of all things bulk there. Does have a slightly different value to the other ones. Our ballast is 58 originally. Building sand's 58.50. It's actually changed recently. They used to be on parallel with each other, but looks like the building sands increased in price faster than the ballast bulk. And MOT's trailing behind, that's why MP gravel's trailing behind. Now what I can do is I can just go in here again, I can edit that resource and just put in there -10 as my adjustment to bring it in line with everything else. So it might be something else I might be applying it to. But there again, I've just applied it to everything. I can clear that off and view everything in between. Now, as I was saying, it is very explicit as to what it's finding. If I was to type in here, standard bag, hit enter, you'll see standard, there we go. You'll see that it's found everything that says standard bag, it's everything that says bag, and it's just filtered for the word standard as well. It's all separate. So bag, standard bag. Just going off piste a moment from what I normally train, but just a trick with finding things in Google and stuff like that. If you put speech brackets around it, speech marks, standard bag, it will filter explicitly for that term what's within those speech marks. Useful one if you're trying to find certain things, like an exact phrase, or song lyrics. Put it in speech brackets, and it'll find those items explicitly, which also means I can now also look at the counterparts to the bulk bags where the standard ones are. Just going to clear that off because I'm not going to make changes to those right now. A couple more sections I'm going to look at, then we're going to start looking at adding resources to the price book. I'm going to untick aggregates. I'm going to go to carcassing timber, because this one is a large section. You'll see there that as I look at these items, I've got everything that is each and then meter. So if I was to look at this list here, I've got regularized kiln dried joist, got 47 by 100. I've got all the different links now: 2.7, 3, 3.3, 3.6, 3.9, 4.2, 4.5, 4.8, 5.1, 5.4. You get the drift. Now, I've also got a price in there at a meter. Now, sawn carcassing, meter. Metal web joists, priced per meter. They're actually all just priced a meter there as well, so that's quite handy. Same with the ply web. When I get down to the regularized kiln dried C16, got all the sizes, and I've got the meter. The meter rate, the meter price, is the one we use for estimating with. That way then it doesn't matter if he runs 3 meters or 5 meters, it's just running it at the meter price. You can swap out for the individual price rates ones afterwards. You know, if you need a 5.4 meter timber or 5.7 meter timber, you'll estimate one of those instead of 5.4 meters worth of regularized kiln dried at the meter rate. But it's just much more flexible to work with the individual rates, well, meter rate first. And again, these items here, these full-size timbers, are available to be swapped into your estimate at the end via the rounding tool if you've got the smart scheduler, as you to swap materials out based on what's being used. For this purpose, I'm just going to go to unit of supply and just tick meter and look at my price book of just the resources in their meter rate. Actually, this price book's more inflated than it used to be because of all the different size of metal web joists and ply web joists. But if I was to look at, say, the C16s or the C24s, now we've just got the 100 mil, 150, 200, 225, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200, 225. Much easier to define between them and then start adjusting costs. So if we know what we're paying per meter for 47 by 100 on your C24, whatever the difference is there, we can apply to all the other meter length rates on all the other items we're actually estimating with, which could be useful. And if we work it out in here, we'll just adjust these, then we can also adjust the full length timbers as well on the each size. So just a little tip there to, when managing timbers, take it down to the unit of supply meters, and it just makes everything much more easier to handle, as it were. There are a couple of resources, and some we've actually seen, but I've not mentioned yet, that we can't really put an adjustment to. If I go to my filter again, I'm going to untick carcassing timber, and I'm going to tick bricks. This is going to go blank for a moment. The reason it's gone blank is because you can't buy bricks by the meter, because my unit of supply is still filtering by meter. Purposeful error, just so you can see what happens if you've got, say, something like this applied where there's actually no filter available. So I've unticked the meters. There we go. Top tip as well, if it all goes haywire, you can untick the filters down here, but they're still there, ready to apply. But you can also right-click with any of the headers and hit Reset Layout, and it puts it back to default, like it was just unboxed. The way it's filtering things. Prices won't change, it just puts all the ordering back into the way it was. Now, I am in the brick section, and it starts off fairly normal. Brick slips, engineering bricks, class A. Then we've got a pack of 400, which is for the smart scheduler. Class B, a pack of 368 there as well. And then we get to our facing bricks. And it says provisional. allowance. We get these for all of the facing bricks and the reclaimed bricks. All these price brackets, as they were. Now, there are other materials that use this. I'm saying allowance of per cubic meter and so forth. Then you can add your own in to have your own quantities, and we'll be getting something to similar that in a moment. But the idea between these is that we don't need to create a new resource. We can just, or say for a particular brick type, we can just say that's a 75p brick. That's a £1.30 brick, that's a £1.40 brick. We do jump from the 5p increments after a pound to 10p increments. So if you absolutely desperately need a 34p brick, you can create one. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But as you may have registered, putting an adjustment of, say, increase of 10% on something that has its price within its name doesn't make the most sense, because if we end up with a resource that costs 90p but it says it's 85p, confusion will ensue and cats and dogs will rain from the sky, and Australia might actually win their war against the emus. And if you're curious what that comment's about, Australia officially lost a war versus birds. History facts for you. Now, moving on from this one, actually, I'll pause a second, see if there's any questions coming in from what I've gone through so far. Is there any questions about what I've covered? So, no questions? Okay, so I'm either incredibly comprehensive or you're all bored to tears and gone to sleep. Not quite sure. We'll find out at the end when we do a quiz. I'm going to untick bricks and I'm going to go to the insulation section. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and go to insulation. I'm going to give everyone else an opportunity to go to the insulation section. Yeah, Home Police's website's down. That's inconvenient. That's okay. I've got Insulation Superstore. Now, this section, we are going to look at creating resources for our price book. There are times when there is something we require that is not within the price book or is not a similar resource and can use to stand in which case then we need to create something. Now, a little proviso on this. Have a think about whether or not you do actually need to create something. If there is a resource in there, but it's just the wrong price, you do not need to create a new resource. You just change the price of the existing. One of the reasons being is that the resources in use in here are very likely to be listed in a specification somewhere. And if you create a new resource, the old resource is still listed under that specification, unless you tell the specifications either via some certain processes under favorite merchants, which can be a little bit more, I'm going to say, when you're a bit more used to the software, or changing it every time you use it is laborious. So it's better to just change the resource in question's price. It's one of the reasons why everything is generically named. There are the odd one here and there where something might have a non-brandish name, acoustic rock wall. But if I come down, you'll see that we've got very, very generic names. Now, it's hard to, clock that straight away when it comes to, say, bricks or timber. Timber is very generic name to begin with. Blocks, you might be expecting H or Celcon blocks, but we just call them standard insulation blocks or dense concrete blocks. It really comes apparent when you get to this. Polyisocyanate. Polyisocyanate. Yeah. Say that fast a few times. In other words, Celotex. Or Kingspan. Or third manufacturer I can't really think of right now. Damn, that's a monopoly. No, duopoly. That's one. Yeah. Anyway, either which way we look at their commanding presence within the field of insulation. Some merchants have stock one, some merchants stock the other, some merchants might stock both, or different variation scales thereof. So we just keep things generically named. So we specify a polyiso board, and it can be then used to price either via Celotex or Kingspan. It's just the boards in priced at the correct, well, within the region of that board type. Now, there might be times when the specification on a job and the customer really wants to see something in there. It might be worthwhile creating a resource on the fly within the job to say, oh, this is the very specialist version of Celotex's so-and-so board that we're using for this one because the architect specified it. So it might be worthwhile copying the resource, maybe adjusting the price if there's a significant enough difference, because it could be specialist. And winning the customer over by pointing to a few key named resources that they might have dreamt of, since their youth of using this one particular installation board in their dream house. I've heard stranger. But other times, more realistically, it could just be a resource that's new on the market or just not frequently used enough to warrant being in the price book. There are some that have been named that are making their way to the price book, so don't worry, things like Actis and stuff like that, I am poking to get in there. For this demonstration though, this training session on creating resources, I'm going to show you how you can create something based off something else. Now, when you click on a resource, now I've just clicked on GP fiberglass insulation roll. It's 150 roll and it's got coverage of 5.42 meters square. That's another theme that's common between all the items within here as well. We have its coverage / usage factor / size within its name. Products you would be looking to buy online will also be doing the same in the merchants, so you know how much of it you're going to need to buy to cover a certain task. And it's very, important now and critical that we maintain that same naming functionality when creating resources. If I was to just create a new resource and then just call it insulation roll, when I go to use it, it's nigh on pointless because I don't know if it's a 5.4, I don't know if it's 6.99, it could be 10.64. I could end up ordering half as much as needed or twice as much as needed without knowing the size of it. And the same things for anything else that is, if it doesn't say its coverage in there, it'll have the sheet size in there instead. So 2400 by 1200. We know what that is. That's a 2.88 meter square coverage. So on that note, I'm going to highlight my GP fiberglass roll. Doesn't matter which one, it's going to be used as a basis. And I'm going to click on New Resource. This will bring up a screen similar to that edit resource 101, but now it's all editable. We can put in whatever we want. The description now, it starts off with the one we've just copied with the word copy in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sheep's wool insulation. I've popped along. All good scaling on this one. Scaling is not our friend. So you're viewing a very scaled screen right now. My monitors are much larger than what you're viewing right now. Now, the handy thing about this this website is because I can do XVAT, INCVAT prices, which is particularly handy. Now, I'm going to say that I need a sheep's wool loft insulation, 150 mil. Got 150 mil there, 150 mil down here. That's a bit narrower. 370 mil. Oof. Let's go with this first one. It's 150 mil by 570, 4.9 meter square coverage. I'll click on that one. Currently 77.50. Now I might not want to price it at 77.50. I might just do it at its non deal price. Might still be affected by the month-long Black Friday sales that everyone seems to be having on. So 82.68 is its price, and its description is sheep's wool loft insulation by cozy wool by thermofleece. I'm going to highlight that whole line. Control C. Now right click, copy. I'm going to whack that straight in there. I'm going to do the same with the customer friendly, and on the occasions you might be using this in conjunction with Plans Express and you're sending it back for building reg notes in the plans specific as well. Now the customer friendly one, I'm actually going to get rid of the size. Just call it 150 mil. And I might even get rid of the cozy wool by thermofleece in there. Let's call it sheep's wool loft insulation. So that's what by choice and by default will end up on the quote. Particularly useful if you don't want it being too detailed for someone else to quote from your quote. But you still have the description there that you can use if need be. If you are doing this for Plans Express, and you can whack in thermal conductivity. And those useful bits of information to go back to there. Now, important bit, unit price. I got £18.90 in there. I'm going to put in that 82.68 ex VAT. So I'm not doing the discount price because by the time the customers turn around and said, yes, I want to buy that, it's not going to be on the sale price anymore. So that'll end up costing me an extra £5.18 per roll ex VAT. And if I've got a few of them, that's I'm going to be stung caught short because I thought I'd been clever pricing it on Black Friday sales. Now, since I'm putting in the exact price of this one, I don't need to put in the discount or adjustment. I have the unit price. Now, each is perfectly fine for a roll, but I could be a little bit more picky and say it's by the roll. So just when I go to use it and change it later on, you'll say one roll covers this instead of one of each covers this. The merchant, though, I'm going to change this. Now, for this training session, I'm just going to pick provisional. So when I filter by provisional, it appears under my provisional items. If I want to be, looking at things by a particular merchant I might use frequently, and I'm creating resources that I know I can get from a certain merchant, or as by a specialist merchant, I can click add and type in the merchant that I am buying this from. I could type in here now, Installation Superstore, so I know that this resource is priced based on this merchant. In fact, actually, no, I won't bother with that. I'll just let's. I might just do that. I'll just copy the URL for now. Maybe that's it. I'm too lazy to type the whole thing. There we go. Installation Superstore. Click OK, and that's now my merchant. That'll pop up. type installation, that's fine. Now I have delivery and payment weeks. I might not know what my payment weeks are, but if I look here, I can see estimated delivery, 3 to 5 working days. That's fine. I can probably order this last week before and it'll turn up on time. But that's still cutting it because you never know what other issues might occur. So at the very least, you want to order it 2 weeks beforehand to make sure it arrives on site. In fact, you probably want to order it much further ahead if possible. That's what material order sheets help you decide with. But at the very least, currently the default for the resources in here of 2 weeks means that you've got 2 weeks notice to order the materials to make sure they're there. Otherwise, you might be suffering a delay. So you've got 2 weeks pad and then paid off within 5 weeks. There is a merchant's code. You don't have to change this one, but if you are being super duper picky or super duper precise, you can copy the merchant code from wherever you're copying the resource from. So there we go, just my resource code from the website. We have our VAT rate, 20%. You can add different VAT rates in there if you want to. And something I mentioned earlier on, which is the wastage costs. Now, every resource has a wastage amount. You've not clocked by now that some of them have been 25%, some have been 5%. This one has 10%. What this means is that if I was to order 100 meters square of insulation, it will order 110 meters square, 10%. Reason being, making sure you've got enough to do the task in hand once you've started cutting, using it, wedging it, so forth. It can be counterintuitive when estimating because a calculator can be too accurate. And a good example of this is things like the aforementioned 25% wastage on aggregates and things like sand and cement. If you used to exactly need one bulk bag of sand to do the wall, you would not have enough sand to do the wall if you ordered one bulk bag. By the time it's delivered, or if it's delivered loose, it's even worse because you get stuff, just wash away. You'll never get all the sand out of the bag. You drop a bit on the shovel, throwing it into the mixer or mixing it by hand. You'll lose a bit from the mixer. When you get it out of the mixer, a little bit left behind, that gets washed away when you wash the mixer. When you put it into the buckets or the bin or wheelbarrow, bits get left behind, bits get dropped. Once you get to the actual task in hand, bits go on the scaffold, you scrape bits off, bits drop, bits get tamped off on the scaffold bars. It's constant attrition of the resource. So we have to factor that in as part of the resource's description. So you're always ordering enough that if you're working with someone who's a bit clumsy and a bit wasteful, you still got enough. And if you're just dealing with resources that naturally can get blown away by the wind, some of you may have had the fortune of trying to put a bag of cement in a mixer and the wind picks up. It's like, well, bye 25p's worth of cement into the wind by accident. So that's what the wastage is covering there. Then when there's wastage not affecting order quantity, that is currently zero, because what that does is just adds cost. It doesn't increase the order quantity of a resource. That is more for less, a good example, a boiler or doors. They're whole items. You can't order 1.1 boilers or 1.1 doors, but you can order 1.05 of a boiler in price while ordering one boiler. So you end up with a couple of quid extra per door, per boiler, like entity like that, or radiator, which allows you for screws and fixings or something else that might be missing. Things, little bits that get missing from the packet. Or accumulates enough that then you can replace a pane of glass or something. It just all slowly builds up, gives you a bit of coverage there. So that is the purpose of those wastage costs. Now, if I click OK on this, Now, fortunately, it's not hidden straight away, but so I'll make sure it's ticked on my merchant list because it's now just added to that list. My installation superstore, sheep's wool loft installation, in red because it is a custom created resource, so it's not tracked by us. So red because we're not going to change it because we don't know what to change it to. We're not mind readers. Now, all that said and done, right? Make sure again if it's not shown it straight away, use your merchant to make sure if you've added one in, it's in. If you've just left it as provisional, then it should be fine. Usually it pops up at the bottom under provisional, the merchant list. But we have created a resource that can be used later on. The handy thing is that when you create a resource like this, it's in the price book. I've created it in the library price book. It's going to be there ready for the next job. The next job I create, it creates a copy of the price book. It's there ready. You can do this when in the specification. We'll see that next session. You can do this when estimating. We'll see that next Tuesday. Now, there's not a point really where you can't create a resource unless you're actually in the output section. You can always create a resource and swap it in wherever. If suddenly there was a dire need to build a house out of cheese wheels, and by George, you can estimate it. Now, I'll give you a second to finish that off, and then we are going to change our type location. So we're going to go from insulation to ceramics, etc. Little top tip: if you can't be bothered to scroll all the way down to the bottom or to find the item there, you can tick to show everything, and then untick to remove all filters, and it just shows everything anyway because there's no filters. And then I can just click on ceramic, etc. There we go. This one is a beautifully short list, nice and easy. Yep. Now, this one is just another short exercise on creating a resource using an allowance cost as its basis. I'm going to create quarry stone tiles. If you're not quite sure what a quarry stone tile is, those beautiful things there, I tend to think of them as like say, these ones in hallways and such, the nice patterned tiles. Do love them. People who cover them up makes me sad. They are some of the best and hard-wearing tiles you'll find. There are a lot of houses around here that still got their tiles that are over 100 years old. I have tiles in my property that are near 200 years old. They are solid. Now, you might be doing a job as renovation, you'll have to find them secondhand. There might be a price bracket for that. Or you might be doing a job where you've been asked to use ones that are new, which can range from about 50 quid to 150 quid per meter square. Not a bit of range in these, depending what they are, what colour they are. So I'm going to use this floor tiles allowance £30 per meter square as my basis. With that highlighted, I'm going to click New Resource. I'm going to get rid of where it says Copy. And I'm just going to change that to say Quarry Stone. Copy that to the other ones as well. There we go. Now that still says £30 per meter square. I'm going to put these in here at a slightly pricier than average £85 allowance per metre square. Now that's just the description. So I need to make sure that my unit cost actually matches that, otherwise my estimate's going to look a bit weird. So £85 each per metre square, what we're working with it. No discount, no adjustment, net purchase 85, unit of purchase metre square. So when the software is estimating, it's looking at the spec and goes, oh right, that resource is being used, it's priced by the metre square. My calculation for usage is 1 for 1. 1 metre square of this resource, or 1 metre of one of these resources does 1 metre square because it's a metre square. Makes sense. We'll see this next time when we're looking at the specification, what usage factors mean effectively. And we've got resources smaller than a metre square or bigger than a metre square. Price tracker, I'm going to set this one to be provisional because I could buy this. It could be second hand, so I might just put provisional. So it could be from anywhere, wherever I can get my my sources can source them from, be it rec yards or whatever. And type. Now, this is where a philosophical question comes in. Are we ceramics or are we stone? I panic if I do not know. Answers in the questions box, please. There's really, it comes down to convenience. If I'm doing a tiled floor and I'm estimating for it, and it's defaulting to the allowance £30 floor tiles, and I go and change resource, for convenience, I want my quarry stone to be in that list when I click change resource. So I can just go change resource, quarry stone, job done. So in that case, leaving it in the ceramics, etc. section of the price book is the most convenient because it's just going to be when I go to swap it from like from one resource to another, it's there. If I was being super pedantic and say, no, it's stone, I must put this in the stone section of the price book, then I can do. Though there's not much stone in there really to, tiles in there. So for this, I'm going to leave it as ceramic, etc. for the sheer convenience of it and ease of swapping it around later on. Because it does say etc. Gives us a bit of leeway there. It's not quite like putting in a breeze block, in the carcassing timber section. Delivery weeks, we've got, it says 2 there. Now this could be more of a pickle because if you're looking for reclaimed tiles, you might have to be on the hunt for a bit longer. So I've got some let's quick look at terracotta ones. Let's say delivery. Ooh, that's quite cheap actually. Those ones. Ooh. Any less than 50 tiles and you have to collect. Ooh. Each tile weighs 2.25 kilos. Oof! Don't want to carry too many of them once. 9-inch by 9-inch. So I look at, see if there's something I've reclaimed, say like it's delivery times, but again, if you're looking reclaimed, you might be buying them from somewhere else in the country. So we'll give ourselves, 4 weeks head start on that one. Let's say 4 weeks to source it, maybe even longer, depending. Doing a really nice renovation job, we're looking a bit farther ahead. Customer might have sourced it already. You never know. Payment weeks paid off within 5 weeks of ordering. I'm going to give this within 6 weeks just because I've increased the delivery weeks time there. Now that's for not so much going to affect your estimating, but it will affect your reports on say cash flow and material ordering schedule. So if you're doing the build program and it says your internal fitting out phase starts in the beginning of August, then I need to be looking and ordering these tiles at the beginning of July to make sure they turn up for the beginning of August. So that's what that delivery week says. And my report will say, well, July, order these resources. Yeah, that's where that comes from. And then payment weeks basically affects cash flow, money going in and out. Merchant's code. There are no merchant's code for this one, so I'll just leave it as is. VAT, 20%. That's fine, they were buying them in the UK. Then wastage increasing order quantity. That's 5% on that previous one. This is very likely going to be more. Again, reclaimed materials or even new ones of a certain type. You might have more wastage because of cuts, breakages, and so forth. And this is where sometimes having a knowledge of what it is you're ordering can really pay off. Now, ordering certain type of material, I'm going to put this here as 10%. That way I'm overordering enough for cuts and breakages and ones that might not be perfect or so forth there. Give me a bit of leeway, a bit of play. One of the resources I tend to discuss the most when it comes to this, if anyone's been in a training session before, if you like kind of the second time through or anything like that, you've heard me talk about this one before, but slates. I don't think tiles in general the same, but so there's some certain tiles I'll tell you, composite ones, they can just be all thrown off a cliff. But slates is my go-to one on this. Welsh slate, much like the land of Wales, is a beautiful thing. They're flat, unlike Wales. They're even. There's not much in the way of flaws in the slates themselves. They're very consistent, easy to lay because they don't rock or anything like that, and they're high quality, nice even color tone to them and so forth. Depending on what ones you get. They charge a premium for the fact that they're so nice, but they do also have a guarantee of 150 years because they're good quality. And the wastage of them can be quite low because you only need enough to make sure the odd broken slate, maybe in transit or when you're fitting it and you miss with your hammer, and you go, oh, that was an expensive mistake. So it could be like 7.5%, or even 10% if you're erring on the side of caution. Then you got something like Spanish slate. Now Spanish slate still good, 75-year guarantee, but a little bit more in the way of bumps, not quite as flat and even as Welsh slate. So sometimes you might have to get a little bit more just so you can work them around a little bit, figure out where you're going to lay them so they kind of all lay as smooth to each other as possible, so you don't end up with gaps and birds trying to nest underneath the eaves because they all kick up. So you might want a couple of extra, and you've got the increased chance of, say, quartz lines and the like. So you might go 12.5% wastage. You might then, if someone's really trying to skimp out on things, which ironically enough doesn't work out, because if you're going something like Argentinian slate, you have to order more again. You have to go 15% wastage or 17.5% wastage because they're not, they're more like the Argentine mountains down there. They're all over the place. Fun fact: Argentina is called Argentina because of the Silver Mountains, and Argentina, I think, comes from the Latin for silver. So that's mountainous. The mountains of Patagonia, and the slates that come from that region are just as bumpy. So you need a little bit more. Plus, again, increased fractures and quartz lines more likely to break, so forth. You have to use more to get an even roof. And then to finish off, Chinese slates, which have a very large wastage factor because they're just not the best quality. They're just not even enough to say, oh, we'll order just a little bit more than the area we need. It'll be fine. No, you are cursed and doomed to do that. Little quiz. I've given you a fact about why Argentina is called Argentina. Anyone say in the questions box, where else can you buy slate that is equivalent of Welsh slate? Give you a minute to have a little think. Try not to Google it. But Welsh slate, the best slate of all. There's another country in the world that can provide slate of equal quality. Portugal. Not quite. Quick geology lesson, or history lesson, combined. Geology is actually just history of stones, really. Cast your mind back to a few million years before the mid-Atlantic ridge. Yes, there we go. There we go. Got the answer. David got that one. Before the mid-Atlantic ridge did its number on us and decided to split the Americas from Europe, probably for the better, really. Canada was smack bang next to Wales. They were in fact the same place when we had the supercontinent of Pangaea. And the same rock formations that we get slate from now were formed at that time and spread from Wales through Canada. So Canadian slate is the same quality, consistency, and colour as Welsh slate for the most part, depending where you buy it. So Canadian slate in some places is allowed to be used on heritage. Oh, no, a different country. But what about Billabong slate Cornwall? Oh, but that means going down to Cornwall. That's for the Cornish. No, me mean about Cornwall. I am from the West Country, so I'm close enough to be mean about Cornwall. And it doesn't help with the fact that a good chunks of family living in Devon, so I'm honour bound to have some kind of thing to say about Cornwall. I don't think I've actually, in my years of roofing, I don't think I actually used Billabong slate. So it's one of those times where I don't actually feel I'm qualified to make commentary on it, because I've used all previously mentioned slates, hence why I can say about them with a conviction of they're annoying to lay. You've perked my curiosity now. Chunky boys. Looks quite even there. I've seen these. Looks like quite a thick slate. Cool. Tell you what, from looking at some of these pictures, rag slate. A quick read of that. Irregularity in size, shape, and colouring. Oldest and largest quarry in England come from. Okay. You see, I was going to say, from a distance, if I was to look at that from a distance and you were not paying too keen attention, you can almost think that was a stone roof. Don't know if anyone's had the pleasure of fitting a stone roof. Like I say, that's a say stone roof. That's big stones, but from a distance, it might not be to tell too much of the difference. Actually, that's a really big one. That's really big ones. Yeah, from a distance, might be very similar, I think. That's a nice job, that actually. I quite like that. So, yeah. I think it's just I can easily get caught up in a conversation about certain materials and quality and looks of them. But hopefully I've imparted the thought about, when if you haven't the different material, if you're creating something to add into here, the thought about wastage and how much extra you're gonna need to order, because when you're estimating, it's going to be very explicit about the areas, so you do use the wastage to make sure you've got enough. So I'm going to click OK on that one now. and that is added in. So are there any questions about the materials section? Nope. Kiddos. Let's see if there's a. I mean, I can say when the rag slates ones you talked about looked a bit like that job there. That roof, that rag slate. If you don't have the merchant ticked here when you price, will it be in the price book? Yes, it's this. The prices are still there in the background. You know, the resource there. It's just this is just filters. So we're just looking at a smaller section without having to view everything at once. It's almost like filtering like product type on Amazon instead of looking at the entirety of Amazon in one go. Yeah, because if I was to just right click on here and just reset layout to get rid of all the filters, all the crystal stuff's there, all of everything I've done is there. And just to point out, if I go to the merchant one there, if I click on provisional, which I like using provisional, I just added resources in there. If I go to Installation Superstore, I can see that one's added. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to the plant section. As if for the last 20 minutes, we're going to look at plant, subcontract and sundry are basically £1 items. So I'm going to click on plant and scroll to the top. And I'm going to start off in the plant section by clicking on editing tools and edit prices. I'm going to have that column open from the word go. So I can just scoot through here and make adjustments as I go. Now, we start off with access equipment. Access tower, cherry pickers, 400 quid a week for a cherry picker. It's not too far off what most people would be paying for the most part. So we're fairly confident with these ones. What I would say you really need to start having a little look for things is maybe under crane engine excavators, because you'll see there that there are a couple of items priced with the unit of supply of day, where everything else is a week. It's based on rental costs. But the ones with days in there, you'll see there 25-ton mobile tele crane and driver, 8-hour day. Or the backhoe excavator and driver, 8-hour day. Mini digger and driver, 8-hour day. That price for these items includes the cost of the plant, rental or usage because it's yours, plus paying the driver to drive it for that day. So whenever you're using that, you're also including your ground worker's day rate on top of whatever he's doing elsewhere. So you've always got enough money. The plant's just not there, and then you're not paying for anyone to drive it. It's factored in. And like I said, it's not just rental costs. If you have to rent a mini digger, if you own the mini digger, then you still got to maintain it, insure it, service it, fuel it, buy a new smelly tree for the cabin every now and then, and so it don't stink too much. So all that additional cost goes, and you can put it into the day rate of there as well. So whatever and the thing to note is if you increase your day rate of your ground workers in your labour section, then you kind of want to maybe reflect that a little bit in here as well. But that's not the most critical ones in here. As I go down past our light plant like Acrovox and heavy breakers and such, there's a couple of bits of plant we were poking the dev team to add in here over time as well. We've got our rubble sacks, pack of 30, most important one. I'm proud of the rubble sacks. That was one of my greatest additions to the software, saying, please get some rubble sacks in there. Masonry strong boy supports, again, I use them and use the cost of them to represent needles if need be. I just double the amount of aquapops I need. We'll get to that. Power tools, protection. So again, not huge amounts of cost and difference we need to look at. Safety equipment. Then we get to things like site accommodation. So I'm looking at type as I'm going through here. I'm looking as I scroll down at my type. Now, site accommodations are when we start getting to things that could have more of an impact on cost, like portable toilet. It's currently there £40 a week. You may be paying more for your portable toilets per week. And again, it depends on the time of year of the job as well. If you're in the southwest and it's around Glastonbury time, then we're paying extortionate amounts because they're all in use. You might be paying for a steel container. You've got 25 quid a week in there, might be a little bit more. But the biggie, okay, there's a bigger section as well because there's quite a few items in here. Spoil removal. And I don't tend to use the word implore much, but I ask of you, of all the sections, to look at the spoil removal. Have your editing tools and edit purchase price column open, because if you know what you're paying for a certain item in here, change it and see what the difference is, because this will be a significant difference depending on where you are. I find that this is one of the biggest swings one way or another. We are sometimes a little bit too conservative with this one on the averages, because in some places skip prices are much higher. In fact, Bristol probably a good one to base it on because we pay extortionate amounts in Bristol anyway. Most of our skip companies are actually located towards the middle of the city and pay inordinate amounts of ground rent. Plus, we've got we'll get onto that in a minute, clean air zone. Now, starting off with, some of the spore removals are like 3-ton dumpers and such, ain't gonna matter, but 20-ton tipper and driver, including landfill tax. So that tax is what's gonna sway it. And the 20-ton tipper is gonna pop up a lot, especially on new builds or any site strips. 20-ton, the tipper pops up. That's currently in there. It's got 340 quid each, effectively per load, or full load. We've got grab lorry for inert waste and mixed lorry. So that's going 10, 13, and 18-ton loads appropriately. Again, those don't tend to be used by default, but you can pick to use them where needed instead of a skip, let's say. Roll on, roll off skips, 20 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. But the ones that it's going to be used all the time is the skips. You got your 10 yard, 12 yard, 14, then it actually resets down to 2, 4, 6, 8. Oops, numbers. The two most important ones are probably the 6 and 8. The reason being is that the software by default uses the 6 yard, but most people like to swap it to an 8 yard. But the 6 yard was chosen because it's the one that's most frequently used and able to fit on a driveway or in front of smaller jobs. So at least it's always the starting point. You're gonna have 2 on job at the same time if need be. But that's in there, 180. I know in Bristol, I will not be paying 180. 6-yard skip at our office would cost $245. That's just by going to a local skip company. Just by that rate, it might not be the best, but you know, their radio advert is is catchy. But still, they're going to be, you know, in line with what other people around here are going to be charging for their skips. Now that's going to be, you know, if it's on road is 336. So they're probably paying for some of the bits and bobs on that one. Don't matter if it's an exchange or new, it's probably just swapping out if you've already got one. So yeah, we're working this at the off-road charge. If I put it on road, 336.77. But that would be factoring that there's some other bits in the calculators to include that in if need be as well. So we'll just do this as the off-road charge. Yeah, see, the cost of putting the skip on the road is £87. They apply for the permits for the relevant council, which can take up to 5 working days. So if you want to be lazy with the pricing, you can always put with the including permit price on there as well. But you know, that's on a job by job basis. Not every job's gonna need to put it on the road. So £245. I'm going to hit save editor changes. I'm going to say yes to that. And my difference is 36% different between list price and purchase price. So I'm going to go all of that, edit, and put an adjustment of 36. Apply that. And all of that. I could even do that to everything, all the other skips in there as well, or grab lorries, depending. They're probably going to have different values. Do that to the asbestos skip as well. Whack it all up. I think quarterly for the plant prices, because it tends not to, a lot of those items like the rental on the lot plant doesn't change so much. I do know the skip prices are currently being reviewed. But it's one that even when we do track it, either half the customer base is happy and then the half is like going, what are you doing? Or the other half, or vice versa. And again, literally, it can depend entirely where you are and what your kind of local council is going to start charging you for stuff. So that should hopefully be not too far in the distance. So yeah, have a look at your skip prices, because depending where you are can make a big difference. Like I said, kind of segueing into the next bit for the next few minutes. We've got things like the base suspension fee, parking fees and so forth there. Congestion charge. Now that's £11.50 per day. Now again, that's just a genericized one, because depending where you are, it could be entirely different, and not every city's got a congestion charge. Now it's called congestion charge, but you know, clean air zone, ultra low emission zone, whichever way you want to paint it. Now it's going to be something that's going to be affecting a lot of other people. Oh, just 1 second. Yes, please. Thank you. Coffee delivery. Bristol is £9. That's if you've got a vehicle Euro 4 before, petrol, or a diesel less than, well, older than 4 or 5 years. If you're a diesel, you're really out of luck. I know a lot of people with much newer cars that are diesel that still have to pay to drive into Bristol. And because Bristol never finished their ring road, you literally have to drive through the clean air zone to get from one side to the other, unless you go all the way around or hit a motorway. It's not exactly well thought out. So there's a lot of cheap diesels being sold in Bristol at the moment. I know someone that sold their car and bought a huge van. Again, that is subjective depending on where you are, and also what kind of vehicles you are running. It's worth noting, you could change that to a much higher figure for the odd occasions. Now I say higher figure odd occasions because here in Bristol it's £9 to drive a car in if it's non-compliant. If you wanted to drive a vehicle over 3.5 tons to make a delivery on site that is within the clean air zone, you are talking £100. Same in Bath. You're driving a large vehicle into Bath to drop something off, like a scaffold lorry driving in, or you got some heavy steels being delivered. £100 a day. So you could change your congestion charge to £100 and just use the tally on there for whenever you got your big vehicles coming in to drop something off. Parking fee is just £1 because you just define how much the parking fee is in the local area. Delivery charges now £15 and £40. Normally we use the £40 as the default one of that, but basically you can say you need to go off and pick something up, £40 per delivery. It's basically paying for, or £15, paying someone's wage to be in the vehicle while they're driving it about. Easy enough. Skip permit fees, so that's £60. So again, I could change that. If I was to go to editing tools, edit prices, I might make that 87 because that is what the skip hire company said was the skip permit fee. And I might have one skip on the driveway, one skip on the road. So I might have to only pay one skip permit fee. Spray render machine, 100. It's got a list of basically the sundry plants, all these items now. So again, it's just checking things. Tool allowance. Large van, medium van, small van. Now these are, thank you, are there just so you can work out travel costs, wear and tear in the vehicle, and fuel per mile. So that's just mainly for the travel calculator. Main part is that's the plant section of the price book. The main focus in here is anything that's priced as a day because it's got a day rate in it, or the spoil removal, because that sting you if you are in somewhere where you get charged a lot. So that one I used was actually out in Keynsham, south of Bristol, out quite far out. So it's a nice straight line to Bath Road where we are, so no congestion charge. Yeah, just another thing there is like around here is the clean air zone for Bristol, and right here are half the skip companies in Bristol, or the waste companies there, including Bristol's own waste company. Doesn't always make much sense. Everything around is waste-wise so highly rated. So very well managed. Right. If there are no other questions out, what I'm going to do is the last couple of bits, the last 5 minutes, just going to show you subcontract. Which you'll see here is pound, 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 pound. So contractors or quotations, these will be used in a subcontract quotation calculator. There are some legacy ones like £30 and £40 for budgets. We don't tend to use them anymore. Scaffolding budget. And one that you can use in a pinch because there is still a spec for it. There's basically custom amount. Custom is the flat waterproofing allowance. Now, most of the time when you're flat roofing, you can pick GRP, single ply, Torchon, whatever. But you can still go the allowance cost one. Still got its old price of £40 per metre square, which is like an old cheap Torchon shed roof. You can change that allowance to be whatever you want it to be. Last time I used that was actually about 2-3 weeks ago, where I set it to be £175 per metre square for a Sedum roof supply and fit. As it was not something we quote for, but you can still use it. But everything else is pretty much £1. And the same exists for the sundry section, where all the different types of like design fees, management tasks, warranties, registration fees, so forth, are all in there at £1, because we use the quantity line to say what the actual value is, and it just quantity of £1. So engineers fees, £780, quantity £780, job done. Now, I think the last thing to just touch upon in here is favorite merchants. Right. Oh, that's switch quick. Now, favorite merchants exists within the software to allow you to say if you've got an alternative merchant to use. So if you've got a Travis link or so, you can tell the software, for using our prices, to use the Travis one globally. You can also say that you want to be using it on certain sections and not others. So you might be using Travis for everything except your plumbing goods or your roofing goods. You might go somewhere else for those items. For the more advanced users, I'm just going to use installation as one here, as an example. Okay. Don't copy along with this one because this is just me tweaking. Now, if I was to say that I wanted to use a custom list, custom resources for my installation, I get a little button highlighted. And I can see there that the base resource, so every time it sees a fiberglass roll or something along those lines, now I've got a TP fiberglass roll 150, £24.40 each, custom resource not set. If I click change, I can tell it to use sheep's wool loft insulation, and it will swap every instance of that fiberglass roll to a sheep's wool insulation instead, and it has a usage factor conversion. One of the reasons why it's best left for when you are more familiar with it, because these resources are different sizes. I'm going to need maybe 1.2 sheep's wool to do the same as a single roll of GP fiberglass. So it just knows what equivalence it needs to make. If I was to click change, oh no, not change, just done. It's already done. There we go. Click OK. So that's my custom thing. If I was to look at my specifications next time, it'll be using my sheep's wool in there. For this now, I'm not going to make any changes to that one because I don't want to be adjusting that. It's just more for if you do have a custom merchant applied, or if you want to be changing things to over resources you've created. I wouldn't recommending it just yet until at least we've looked at what those usage factors mean in the next session. So what I'm going to do now is open up to the polls. So I'm going to launch the first poll just so I can see what type of work you carry out. It tends to be say private on here, so your results won't be shared with anyone else. I can see, yeah. I'd definitely say, oh, I was going to say conservatories don't tend to be much, but yeah, we've got some conservatory covers now. A few loft conversions, renovations, extensions, mainly new builds. I see a theme of things there. Okay, a couple more seconds. Okay, so we can see like mainly new build. Well, pretty much everyone's touching new build. Very few don't do extensions or renovations. Just nearly half of you do loft conversions. Okay, let's close that one. Just to see what kind of a experience you have using EstimatorXpress. So some a little, some or quite a lot. Well, see, I'm actually pleased to see that there is some people ticking none or little, just so then I feel that I'm not too much preaching to converted. But for those that you've used some or quite a lot, hopefully I've gone through some things that might be of useful or a nice refresher for you. Cover some things that you might have not considered before. But definitely, in the next couple of sessions, they say spec, worthwhile having a look at. Good chance to little tinker through that as well. And yeah, next Monday we're going to be doing some using the new walls. Cool, right. Now let's look at some questions that are actually Pricebook related. How about the game show voice now? So, how are labour rates set up in EstimatorXpress? Hourly, daily, or weekly? Answer now. Coffee. Lovely. Yeah, unfortunately, my quiz show voice tends to end up one of those like dystopian quiz show masters from one of those 1980s bad sci-fis. Okay. Right. Most people have voted. The answer is hourly. We've had a daily click in there, so beware. Daily only applies on the plant ones. I'm gonna say just throws a day rate in there for the plant user. But when it comes to labor, all the gangs and all the times is set up hourly. Let's go. Now, what button do you click if you want to change the price of a resource? New resource, editing tools, or edit resource? That's a bit of a trick question, huh? Because two of them are actually the correct answer. Yeah. Pretty much nearly everyone voted on that one already. Good, good. Yeah, so edit resource is the obvious one. Edit the price, but it'll only be an adjustment. You have to untick the follow prices to change the price. If you've got editing tools, edit prices, there's an extra click, also that way. Excellent. New question. What is an adjustment? A percentage discount downloaded from my merchant, the percentage difference between the list price and the price I pay, or the actual amount in pounds I pay for a resource. Oh, I'm glad so far everyone's got the right answer on that one. Perfect. Oh, okay. The answer is the difference between the list price and the price I pay. It's not so much discount, it's just the difference between national average, so our price, and your price. Just to point out as well, because I might have neglected that, the download prices button is your friend. That is the button you would click to make sure you've got the latest prices in your software. Now, currently that's going to change from 9:42 this morning to 12:06 or 12:07, depending when it finishes, this afternoon. You can do this before starting a job. You can do this within a job using a tick box on a button that lives in the same place within the job called Synchronize Resources. There you go, 12:05. All right, there's only a couple more questions. Oh, one more. When should you add a resource to the price book? Please select one. I want to add my own version of a resource with my price. I need a resource which does not exist in the price book. I want to change the price of a resource in the price book. Choose now. So far, votes are looking good. It had the majority of votes in, and we are looking at a 100% correct answer rate of I need a resource which doesn't exist in the price book. Good job. Either way, been teaching everyone, or everyone already knew that one already. You're all smart cookies. And talking about cookies, I've got a fresh coffee, but I'd like a biscuit. So I'm going to call it there. Thank you very much for attending today. Thank you for sticking around for the quiz bits at the end as well. It allows me to be a bit silly. Thursday, we'll be looking at the specification. Again, specifications are so much kind of preset and easy to use these days that we can actually spend more time tinkering with learning how they kind of apply, doing things with them that they may not be intended to do, and looking at the mini specs as well and seeing what use they can be for us, and a horror story midway through about flooring. It's not quite Halloween, it's still scary. Now, any questions from the session? No. You got like 20 seconds to ask. Otherwise, please let the support team know. Drop a message over to them or to say support@hpexcel.co.uk, and I'll see you all Thursday. Thank you very much for coming. Goodbye.